Good morning, everybody. It's your boy Dave P with my main man RJ Pepino. RJ, how's the vibe?
Fucking good to be alive.
And we got the man of the hour, the man of the minute, I should say, Mr. Eric Brewer. Eric, we missed you yesterday. So many people concerned about you, brother. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm counting down my days. I don't even know what I got. I think I got like 13 days left or something on lockdown.
Well, they are calling for a new strain of COVID, so hopefully you're staying safe out there. I think you're doing just fine based on the conversation we had before we started streaming live. I know Pennsylvania is a little bit more on the stricter end. They're closing down gyms and whatnot again. Is this accurate?
Gyms, dine-in restaurants, so no dine-in. You know, the crazy thing is this time, like basically everybody just gave a big old middle finger to the governor. Like virtually no one closed down. I mean, they just didn't. They're operating safely, and just in my hometown, I don't know really of more than maybe a handful of restaurants that actually closed down. They all just stayed open and operated as they were before. There was some nutty statistic that shows like less than 2% of traceable people that got sick came from restaurants.
They are definitely, destroying small businesses, and it sounds like we will have more stimulus. I think we're going to be getting into some stimulus talk tomorrow. Lots to discuss as real estate investors, as far as some, rent, subsidized rent coming in. We got probably more PPP coming in, so we'll have more details on that for our fellow business owners. But today, we are talking about our very first real estate deal. And first off, before that, I watched a great movie yesterday. I just want to see if you guys have seen the Kingsman movies. Have you guys checked out the Kingsman movies?
Isn't that where they're spies?
Yeah, they're like spies. They're like Secret Service kind of guys. He's like a young kid in England, and he's like kind of like a James Bond kid. Brewer, have you seen the Kingsman movies?
Now, is it one movie or is there a series of them?
Series of them. I watched the first two, and I'll be watching the third one tonight, but I'm really into the Kingsman movies.
Oh, wow.
I highly suggest checking it out.
I have not seen those.
It's good because it's kind of like playful because, it's like an action movie, but there's full-blown cursing going on. There's full-blown, guns and like violence. And I'm like, all right, yeah, this is kind of my kind of movie. But today we're talking about our very first real estate deal. I remember my very first real estate deal very clearly. And most people start out with wholesaling, and we suggest that's a great way to get started. If you're looking to get started in real estate, first off, check out Eric Brewer online, thebrewermethod.com. He gets into very advanced real estate stuff, but hey, we all got to start somewhere. And once you start walking, you got to start running. Once you start running, you got to start flying. And today we're talking about our very first real estate deal. My very first real estate deal was a wholesale deal. Brewer, tell us about your first real estate deal. Was it a wholesale deal, and how did that shake out?
It was not. It was so I came from the car business. So my natural tendency was like buy, renovate, and resell, right? We would go to the used car auction. I'd buy 30 used cars, I'd bring them back, service them, and then put them out on the lot. So that was sort of my mentality. My first deal, I bought off the MLS, and I had made the switch to full-time real estate for about 2 weeks. This is back in like the beginning of 2005. So back then the real estate market was pretty hot, and there was a fair amount of investor activity. So I had looked at maybe 10 or 11 bank-owned properties, made offers, didn't buy one. And I went out on like a Saturday morning, just came on the MLS. We had to be the first people there. And I walked it with my contractor slash real estate agent, who my partner had a relationship with and had bought some rentals from. And there was a tiny little language barrier. He spoke Spanish, I did not. I spoke English, he did not. And so we're in this house, and I've never done construction. He has, and he gives me a number. He's like $12,000. Like, all right, so $12,000, we can buy it for 49.9. We're in it for like 54, 66. Should be worth 89. It's a deal. Let's buy it. So we bought it. It's 50 grand. Once we started like actually lining up the contractors, the 12,000 number it gave me was just labor.
I got a question. Well, it doesn't sound like a small language barrier. It sounds like more of a big language barrier going on. But
yeah,
let's talk about those numbers here real quick. Purchase price was 40. What was it? 40 what?
Basically 50 grand. It was listed for like 49.9.
Okay, because you just took your 40 or 50K and then you added 12, and then you jumped it right to 66. What was the formula you just did in your head real quick? There's potentially a lesson there.
$4,000 closing cost on 50 grand, so transfer tax. We paid cash, so we didn't have any lending cost, which was 54 plus 12K for reno was 66. Figured it was worth 89.9. Take 7% off of that. About $6,500, so you net 82.5 off of what was my first number? 66.
66. Yep. 49, 54, 66.
$16,000 profit, bro, on a $60,000 house. It's a slam dunk.
And the 4K for
the materials.
Hey, well, we all get our start somewhere, and Where did you come up with the 4K for the closing? Was that just a rule of thumb, or was that part of a percentage that you just did?
Oh God, I think we just used to use like 5% with a minimum of $4,000. So when we would acquire a property, we just used 5% to acquire it. That would account for prorated taxes. Back then, we were only really buying, or most of the inventory you could buy in my town was stuff like that, like stuff that retailed between $90,000 and $110,000. So $4,000 to $5,000 worth of closing costs was typically more than enough. I mean, if you're buying a $60,000 or $50,000 house, it was 8%. So, but that's the number we used. It was 5% with a minimum of 4K to make sure that we covered transfer tax, title insurance, prorated real estate taxes. That was about it.
I'm coming right back to you, Eric, because I'm actually going to ask you about a type of deal that you do, not novations. Okay, I know everyone's probably thinking novations. You can learn about the Brewer method at thebrewermethod.com, but I want to send it over to RJ. Hang out if you're watching. I am going to be giving a tidbit, which I think every brand new real estate investor should know. And then I'm going to be asking Eric about a deal that he's the only one doing these types of deals. And I think there's real opportunity coming. And I just want to kind of glaze over that. So RJ, tell us about your first real estate deal.
Well, the first real estate deal that I made money on was actually a wholesale deal. And this was back, I think, in 2010. And basically back then, I was just plastering all of Columbus, my yellow sign, which said RJ buys houses, and then my number.
Yeah.
I made
so much for staying off the radar.
Yeah. I was just full blown, just, taking all kinds of action, getting on those freaking telephone poles, making the newspaper. There was an article that said that these yellow signs are, littered all over Columbus. But that's what it took. And I say we because I had a mentor then, and if he's watching this, he's still in Columbus, but he's very much under the radar. His name is Darren, but him and I partnered on this duplex that we got in contract. So somebody called one of my yellow signs, got it in contract, and it was in an area now that we all know very well, where duplexes are selling in the 300 and 400,000.
Children's Hospital, I assume.
Yep. And so with his help, we got it in contract for a slam dunk deal. It needed a lot of work. I think it was like 12K, and duplexes now a good deal anymore is, 180 to 100,000 in that same pocket. And so this was back then where, the real estate was down. And so we got it in contract for 12,000. And I remember getting it in contract, and I'm sitting in my the old house that I had, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, this has to work. I'm like, we're gonna put it out to his buyers list, and he had one of the biggest buyers list in Columbus back then. It was Friday night, and I was waiting for his call, and he shoots me this text, and he's like, "Congratulations, we just did our first deal." And I was just like, "Oh my god, what the hell is this? This thing is real." Like he sent it out to his buyers list, and literally in an hour he sold it, and we sold it for 36,000. And it was, I'm sitting there, I'm like just screaming loud as hell in my house, and I was alone. I was living with my brother and his then girlfriend, now wife, and I was just like, "This shit works. This shit works," And that was the most money I've ever made in that on that deal and in that time. And so it was. Anyways, it was just mind. I was blown away, and that was the start. That was the confidence booster that I needed, because before that I had a ton of other shit go bad on deals that couldn't sell, and I was just putting things in contract and didn't know what I was doing. So that was
Two
my first deal.
pieces. Thank you for sharing. Two pieces of advice that we've heard so far. Number one, get yourself a mentor. Don't try to figure it all out yourself. You can learn from Eric at thebrewermethod.com. Does upwards of 350 to 400 transactions a year. Not a bad guy to learn from. Number two is, here's a little personal advice. Don't take on too big of rehabs. I'm sure you guys could understand that. When you're first getting started, the biggest thing that could drag someone down is taking on biting off more than you can chew with the rehab. Stick to wholesale, lowest risk, still gets you in the game. And a type of transaction that a lot of people don't know Eric Brewer still does. He never stopped doing them, and maybe it's genius. But maybe there's an opportunity for this. I think there is eventually. Maybe it could be a couple of years down the line. But short sales. Brewer, you're still doing short sales with banks, aren't you?
Oh yeah, man. We do 50 a year, 60 a year. Our lead count has slowed down a little bit now because, with the foreclosure moratorium, there's not a real demand for people to take action. But we still market. Back when I got started in 2005, 2006, I read a book about investing in pre-foreclosures, and you would specifically target people with equity. Because when you talk about a motivated seller, that's the most motivation you can have. Someone that has equity, they're about to lose it all, right? So like tax delinquents, pre-foreclosures, those were like the hottest leads you could get. So we started getting these leads, and I would turn away ones where they didn't have enough equity, or like a second judgment popped up, and someone suggested a short sale. So I read about it. I did my first short sale on my own. I called the bank and was just like, "Hey, I'll give you 70." That's like, literally, that's how it was, right? And they're like, "No, he owes 110." And I'm like, "Well, it's going to go to the sheriff's sale here in like 3 weeks, and you guys are not going to get the 110. Why wouldn't you just sell it to me?" And we ended up making a deal at, I don't know, it was like 90, and I wholesaled it for, wholetailed it. It was a cash buyer, not an investor. And I sold it for like 125. So much like RJ's first wholesale deal, when I did that short sale deal, I was like, when I went through my brain, and I was like, well, I've literally turned away 30 of these in the last 6 months. What would happen if I actually attempted this with every one? So I started doing it myself. We quickly had enough leads to where I couldn't do it myself. So we opened a short sale company, still open today. I ended up giving it to our top person. That was our only person back then. It's not hard to be the top guy when you're the only guy, but he did a really good job. He was a new home builder, and in 2006, 2007, 2008, obviously as a small family-owned new home builder, the floor got ripped out from under him, and he was looking to do something else, had a bit of a sales profile, understood real estate. And now he negotiates for us. We originate probably 100 a year. We buy about 40 to 50% of them. And he gets over 85 to 90% go to settlement. We just don't buy all of them because, sometimes the prices just don't come back at a number we can make work for a rental or a wholesale deal or a fix and flip, and they end up selling retail in the MLS. Yeah, I don't know why. Like when you say you're not sure they're still out there, what do people base that assumption on?
The assumption, it's a great question. The assumption is a false assumption, and it's based on, oh, the real estate market's so hot. Why would the bank need to take a discount? Why would they not just stick a sign in the yard or stick it with a broker and have it sold a day? So that's where my mind goes, but clearly it's wrong.
Yeah, it's because, well, so here's the deal. The average that a bank gets from a short sale net proceeds, so net versus going through the entire foreclosure process, owning the property, going through the appeal process, winterizing the property, it's on average $30,000 higher that they net from a short sale than they do if they go through for the foreclosure process. So even though they could foreclose on it and sell it for, let's say, full market value, full market value and payoff aren't always the same thing. A lot of these properties are in worse condition than they were when they bought it and appraised it. There's deferred maintenance. In our market, we don't see huge spikes in appreciation. Like right now, our values are up, but they're up 10% from like 3 years ago. It's not like some of these big, metro markets where like values literally go up 50, 100% in one day or 1 year. Like I was looking at a house in Tampa, Florida. I've been trying to relocate there. And I looked at a house. I liked the house. It was a little bit more than what I wanted to spend, but I really wanted it, right? Like I was emotional about this house. My wife loved it. It was on the water. And so I started going through the process of, verifying that it was worth what the person was offering. And through that process, I found that they bought it 10 months earlier for $1 million less. And so I started asking questions. I had my agent send me the old listing, literally did no work to it. The market in Tampa, Florida is just that inflated and bloated right now that the guy bought it. He got a decent deal on it, paid cash. And I think he bought it from one of the football players that was relocating. So he got like a $100,000 discount. And his agent, as we started digging into it, was like, he doesn't really need to sell, but for $1 million, he'll sell it. And the comps were there to support it. There was some activity in that area that supported it being worth what he was asking. And you know what it's like when we buy our own stuff, it's hard to break away from that investor mindset, right? Like even though we're going to live there, it's just a tough pill to swallow to know, not that someone's making $1 million, but that the market changed that quickly in an upward trajectory, and I'm buying on the upwards. Like, so what happens? It can't be worth much more. Like, is it going to continue on that trend? Chances are not. It's either going to flatten out or come back down. And then there I am holding this is a $3 million house.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, that was not a comfortable place for me. But to your point, if I bought that for $3 million and something changes in my life, 2 years from now, I owe 2.6 and it's worth 2 million, even though the real estate market's hot. It's hot because properties are selling quickly, but ultimately the short sale has to do with value, not how quick it will sell. And dude, we're making, like, honestly, some of our biggest wholesale deals are short sales. It's all, maybe that'd be a good topic for later, but it's all about the appraisal. I often say, and I tell people, getting out of a mortgage is just like getting into one. You have to apply, right? And then what's the key when you flip a house or sell a house? What's the most important part of that process to make sure you get the money you want?
Closing.
The appraisal.
The appraisal, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing with a short sale. So we have like most of our energy, time, and effort is centered around communicating with the appraiser, helping them, support them with comps. We do full renovation estimates if the house needs any work. And then we found that the mix of that documentation and support, appraisers are much likely to bring it in at like what an REO value would be, not a full retail value. And then most banks will give some type of discount off of that value. And the combination of those two for us normally is enough for to leave some equity in the deal that we can make money.
Well, it doesn't matter really where your first deal comes from, whether it be you're putting blanketing your city with signs like RJ did, or walking a contract or walking through a house with a contractor and not having your rehab numbers tight with it like Eric did. But the number one lesson here, everybody, is if you're looking to get started in real estate, number one, find a mentor. Number two, the biggest thing that brings us all together is we took action, and I think it's real easy in any business to get the, paralysis of analysis. You get so far down the rabbit hole of analyzing deals and learning all the tips and techniques and whatnot that you never end up actually doing a deal. So I suggest everybody get out there and take action. We have lots to talk about this week. We got more stimulus coming. We're talking lead generation. We're talking finance. We're going through a bunch of refis right now. I got tons of good stuff to share there. But what it always comes down to is starting and getting your first deal under your belt. It's your boy, Dave P. Coffee with the cream and the brewer. Check out Eric Brewer online, the Brewer Method, and we will see you.